It's just like, well, I love to get in great shape. Well, you got to lift the damn weights. The
Right.
more you lift those weights, the more results you're going to have. Like,
Yep.
it ain't going to just happen. You've got to put in the work, and putting in the work means, well, I don't know, that Ibogaine doesn't sound like it's a very good time. No, probably not. Do it anyway.
If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, man.
Well, embrace the suck, right? I talk about the battle school that I endured. It was the last traditional course in '91, and it was fucking brutal. Like, it was so hard. But if it wasn't, then I wouldn't be proud of it.
Correct.
If it wasn't, what's the benefit? If I can't look back and go, ooh, man, I really did something hard. Hello, friends. I'm proud to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Canadian Legacy Project. Veterans Affairs Canada is very limited in its service offering to veterans, so the Canadian Legacy Project has stepped up to fill the gap. CLP develops and delivers a full suite of free programs for Canadian veterans. CLP celebrates our veterans by offering meaningful support for healing and the transition to civilian life. Homes for Heroes, Business Boot Camp, service dogs, educational bursaries, equine therapy, and more are available through the Canadian Legacy Project. Find out more at canadianlegacy.org. Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast. I've had all kinds of cool guests on here. I've had Navy SEALs and Army Rangers and Green Berets, but for the first time ever, I've got me a Top Gun pilot. And but we'll be talking a little bit about that, but mostly, like a lot of veterans, it's their service after service that we're going to be talking about, and how this fella supports veterans and attacks the 22 a day, which is probably closer to 44 a day. Mr. Buckley, thanks for joining me, brother.
Mark, thanks for having me, my friend. I appreciate it.
So first, very important question. Have you ever met Tom Cruise?
No. One of my closest friends that I went through flight school with in the early 90s was the technical advisor for Maverick. The Navy gave him 2-year orders to Paramount Studios. So my brother Brian Ferguson, is best friends with Tom Cruise and Bruckheimer and all those folks. Got his number on his cell phone and the whole 9 yards. Because he, as he tells it, there was a lot of times he had to say no to both of them. Type of thing. So, me, nah, never.
Have you seen both Top Gun movies?
Yeah, man. Sadly, ever since I was a little kid, I loved the ocean, loved boats. I loved aviation, and like a Reese's peanut butter cup, I wanted to be a Navy fighter pilot since my earliest memories, and was stroking pretty hard to make that happen. And then junior in high school, Top Gun comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. Now, everybody and their mother wanted to fly fighter jets in the Navy. The year before Top Gun came out, the Navy was advertising in the New York Times in the classified section. One an adventure, they were advertising because they were short of Navy pilots. And then the movie came out, and everybody did. So that just made me have to study harder and try even harder to fly jets. So saw the first one, and it came out at the worst time for me, but it ended up working out all right.
So in the States, does everybody have pilots in land, air, and sea? In Canada, only in the Air Force will you find a pilot. But there's Army pilots for helicopters, but is there also fighter jets in the Army?
No. The Army has a majority of rotors, helicopters. They have a little bit of fixed wing in our Army, but not that much at all. Air Force, obviously, strategic bombers, cargo, fighters, and helicopters as well. And then our Marine Corps also has fighter jets, F-35, F-18 Hornet. They've just got rid of the Harrier. And then obviously naval aviation, we have our aircraft carriers and fighter jets, jammers, tankers, the whole 9 yards. So hell, even our Coast Guard obviously has helicopters and fixed wing aircraft. So there's a lot of airplanes in the U.S. military.
Is there a replacement for the Harrier?
Nope. Well, I mean, technically, yeah, the F-35, but not a pure replacement for them. The F-35 is technically replacing the F-18 and the Harrier combined for the Marine Corps.
So the 35 is vertical takeoff?
Yeah. There's a bunch of different variants. There's an Air Force variant. Obviously, it can be a little lighter because if you're the Navy or Marine variant, you can land aboard an aircraft carrier. So you need beefier landing gear. You need a tail hook. You need a whole bunch of other stuff. So there's 3 or 4 variants, I think, of the F-35 for the different service requirements.
Who's flying the Warthogs?
Air Force and the Air Guard, and they're going away, man. Even though it's probably the most needed aircraft, it's been schlepping it for a long time. I'd love if they just made a new version of the A-10, but the Air Force is getting rid of it. We're always, kind of fighting the last war type of thing. I get that. But we're kind of not, because at the end of the day, sadly, I don't like war. Never. It's a horror. But at the end of the day, warfare involves picking up a rock and smashing somebody else's skull in. It ain't, all these Gucci F-35s and jamming and drones and this and that. All of that technology makes war more likely, not less. I read a great report from an admiral years ago, even before all the AI stuff really took off, that said, obviously, Whiz flies over Iraq, gets shot down. They beat him up on CNN, black and blue, and the American people hates it and wants the war to end. Well, now we have drones, so let's just send a drone. We don't have to send Whiz. Well, what happens? They shoot down the drone, and we're like, okay, that's a drone. Let's send another one. So, like, the drone v. drone type of warfare only works for so long. Kind of like we're seeing in the fields of Eastern Europe. It's reverted to World War I trench warfare. Dudes in trenches with shotguns trying to kill each other, or the drones too. So at the end of the day, the more technological we get, the more it makes warfare more likely, not less.
All the euphemisms that are used: close with and destroy the enemy. The job is to kill. And at the end of the day, that's the job. Whether
Right.
you're land, air, or sea, whether you got doing it with bombs or a knife, it's
Yeah.
to kill. That's the job.
Yeah, and
And
at the end of the day, with the drone v drone stuff, eventually you go, okay, where are the drones coming from? Where are they being operated from? Where's the human? And go take out the factories. Go take out the dudes flying the drones. So at the end of the day, somebody's got to be turned into hair, teeth, and eyeballs in war, and the drones just kind of delay that from happening. War to me is the ultimate failure of the human condition. It's
yeah,
just, it doesn't get any more of a failure as humans. But if, God forbid, it has to happen, it should be as violent and horrific as humanly possible so it ends quickly. As we're seeing in Ukraine, it's death by 1,000 cuts. The last administration, we're not going to give them tanks. That'll be World War III. A year later, here's some tanks. We'll never give them fighter jets. That would be World War III. A year later, here's some fighter jets. Now,
I find the people that are cheering on war, they don't know what they're cheering on. They've never been in one. I was
nope.
my tour was in Croatia in '94, so in the middle of the Civil War as a UN
Yeah,
peacekeeper,
right.
and people don't realize that that's a combat tour.
Of
It's actually the
course.
worst kind of combat tour because you're hamstrung with your rules of engagement. It
Yeah.
sucks. It's like, do I shoot? Do I not shoot?
Yeah, you're standing in between the Hatfields and the McCoys. I mean, you end up being the target.
Yeah.
They want you to get out of the way so they can keep killing each other. Absolutely, it's just it's an absolute horror. And we'll get into what I do with my foundation, but man, I have seen meat eating, knuckle dragging killers on the other side of us helping them just be absolutely mortified at what they did. So I hope what's the saying? Only the dead have seen the end of war. But I'm hoping in my lifetime we can kind of all realize that we're all on the same team, man, and we can stop killing each other.
There's a delayed reaction sometimes. I've run into guys at the OSI clinic, so that's our veterans clinic that has very, very limited offerings. But
Mm,
I've run into people in their 70s, even in their 80s, where all of a sudden it hits them. What I
yeah,
think it is there are certain automatic coping mechanisms that
Mhm.
happen to us. It happened to me in real time. Like as one of our guys uh, blowed up, I was there when the helicopter came in.
Mhm.
And when I found out he wasn't in my unit, he was in a different unit. He was an engineer, not an infantier. I was cold as ice about it. I
Mhm.
didn't skip a beat with my fork. I still remember so clearly not skipping a beat with my fork as the chopper come in and he gets hauled into the med tent, right? And I always
Yeah.
felt horrible for not feeling horrible. I felt nothing.
Yeah.
But that's an automatic response to a horrible situation to protect yourself. And there were several other situations like that where my brain just said nope and
Yeah.
and distanced itself from what was actually happening and what was actually real. And that just happens
Yeah.
automatically. And sometimes, especially those that have taken lives, um, they, they either say nothing about it or they talk about it like it ain't no thing but a chicken wing. One
Yeah.
fella in particular, he's one of Canada's most highly decorated modern soldiers. He talks very openly. He's like, "Yeah, I killed a guy with the M72 rocket launcher. I don't know what you guys call it. It's the one that extends. They use in all the
Mhm.
extendable one.
Yeah.
That we call it the M72. You guys call it
Yep.
something else." But
Mhm.
yeah, killed a guy with a rocket launcher. The only thing I never killed a guy with a knife. Always wanted to try. So he talks
Uh,
about it in a very like you're watching a movie kind of video game way.
yeah.
But that's today. Those could because the being I because I don't think he's a psychopath. I don't think so at all. But he's distanced from like mentally distanced from those actions and is still not seeing that person as a human being with a
As a human.
family, with kids,
Correct.
with a life. And
Yeah.
then years and years later, that same person all of a sudden gets it for whatever reason. Like a lot of my
Yeah.
childhood trauma, I didn't really understand it until I had two boys of my own, and then I could then I had that contrast of how
Mhm.
I treat my children as opposed to how I was treated, and
Yep.
then the horror of it started to sink. Is like, oh my lord. And
Yeah.
then you can see it in perspective, and it changes. So people that think, oh, I'm fine, yeah, wait for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that it might sneak up on you and bite you in the ass, and for the most strange reason, that you just don't see coming.
Correct. Well, a couple things. The military does a great job turning us into humans that can do some pretty awful things
Yeah,
to another human being, and then when they're done with us, they do a pretty crappy job of turning us back into a human.
no job.
Uh,
It's just here's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way
Yeah.
out.
And then, we're also taught to compartmentalize, right? If you and I were flying a mission into Iran today and you got smoked, I don't stop midair and go, man, I need to mourn this guy right now. Let's have a little memorial service. I got to press on with the mission, man. I got to put bombs through a window plus or minus 1 second. I'll mourn you later. Well, guess what? There isn't a mourn you later. There's another mission or another loss, and we put all those into little compartments and we push those compartments down. The military trains us, you gotta achieve your mission at all costs. Well, guess what? Years later in life, like you were alluding to, all those boxes open up, and like a jack in the box in a horror movie at the
Yeah.
same time, and that can be devastating for a veteran. That's leads to potential suicide or addiction or just some bad behavior. It's a trauma coping mechanism. Is the way in my experience that we've seen it.
And it gets people because they think, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I got no problem with it. It's like,
Correct.
well, is that true, or is there a coping mechanism in play that's
Yeah.
doing its job right now that could slip at any
Correct.
second? And
Exactly.
we see it in peer support all the time. We have people come into a peer support group. I used to run them. I
Mm.
haven't done it for a while. And after 6 months, you know what? I think I'm good. And anybody that's been doing it for a while is like, oh boy. Well, we suggest you keep going. No, no, no. I don't need to keep coming. I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm
Yep.
fine. Then they go home, crash. Oh shit, I'm not fine at all.
Yeah.
And they come back and say, well, you tried to tell me. Say, yeah, it's okay, man. This happens all the time. It's
Correct.
it's a bigger hole to dig yourself out of than a lot of people get credit for, and it doesn't
Agreed.
seem to be a one and done. You
No.
know, it's a long battle.
Hmm. Yeah, it's well, and it's a lifelong battle for many guys, or sadly they end up checking out because they can't handle it, and that's what we have to prevent.
So, your foundation, the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, a lot of
Mhm.
times these start because of a singular story. Either it's your own personal experience or you lost a friend to suicide. Is there a particular story that launched your foundation?
Stories,
Yeah.
right? It starts from childhood and childhood trauma. I was born in South Jersey. My family's from South Philadelphia, but they moved down to the Jersey Shore where they had me. So one of six Irish Catholic kids, kind of a stereotypical Irish Catholic family. I was an altar boy, went to Catholic school. You know, my family made the Pope look Jewish. Um, and then sadly, I was sexually abused as a child.
Yeah.
And then the glue that held our family together, my middle sister, Monica, she was killed by a drunk driver when she was 19. She was a freshman in college at Villanova University. And that was a hand grenade in the middle of our family. I lost my parents when I lost my sister. They were done. They,
Yeah.
years later, when I remember sitting on the couch with my dad watching my two boys playing as babies, and he knew what I was talking about because I looked at him and I just said, "How did you do it?" And he said, "I had you." He said, "When they lowered Monica into the ground, I wanted to jump in there with her,
Yeah.
but I had you." So, and then my dad died years later of a broken heart. Everybody in my family agrees. He just died. He died when Monica died. So I bring that up because I carried that into the Navy, man. Not too many people go into the military with just sterling childhoods. Matter of fact, a lot of folks that enter the military are running away from something maybe in their childhood.
Yeah, I
So
talk about
a
that all
lot,
the time.
yeah, a lot of childhood trauma. And then in 15 years of flying fighter jets for the Navy, I lost 16 buddies.
Holy shit.
Not a single combat loss. This was stupidity, bad weather, mechanical, you name it. But it was absolutely horrific. 16 buddies along the
So as
way.
they're flying,
Yep. Mishaps,
I didn't
major
know it was that
accidents.
common.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's landing a fighter jet or any sort of aircraft aboard a pitching deck at night in bad weather in the middle of the Pacific, low on fuel. Bad things can happen. And the motto at Top Gun is you train like you fight and you fight like you train. So when we're up at Fallon, Nevada, going against our bad guys, I'm embarrassed to say I flew combat sorties over Iraq because they were without a doubt the most boring flying I've ever done in my life. The hardest part was landing back aboard the ship.
Yeah.
The toughest flying I ever did in my career was at Top Gun, which makes sense, right? Because if we go anywhere in the world and we're outgunned or outmaneuvered, or then we failed in our training. So our training, we had midair collisions up in Fallon. I lost a good buddy of mine, Bill Breaker, BB. We had a guy in a Prowler black out and fly straight into the Pacific Ocean as the other three guys tried to eject. I mean, it was just each mishap has its own backstory to it. And
There's
then
four
along the
people in a
way,
prowler.
what's that?
So how many people are in a prowler?
Four.
Okay.
Four people in a Prowler. I think one guy ultimately ended up living out of that. He's the only guy that got like a swing and a parachute before he hit the water. Everybody else like ejected into the water. The first female F-14 pilot crashed when I literally the first couple days I joined my fleet squadron. Kara Holtgren overshot the landing area trying to land on the Lincoln, and she rolled inverted, and the backseater tried to punch them both out. He lived, and she ejected straight into the water. So training, a lot of deaths, and then along the way, I've lost 4 F-18 brothers to suicide, including my best friend, Captain Eric Swenson, Swede. Beautiful bride, 5 kids. Decided to check out, and you don't know why. He's a groomsman in my wedding. So after my last F-18 buddy killed himself in 2020, and then a little bit more trauma, if you can call it that, and I will. But I left. I had a brief airline career. The morning of September 11th was my first and last day at work, essentially.
No shit.
I was getting ready to go flying my first trip. When I saw the plane hit, wondered what's going on. Second plane hits. I throw on my flight suit. I got picked up to fly Hornets out of the Naval Air Station Fort Worth as a reservist. I raced out to the air station and ended up manning a combat air patrol. So I went from potentially flying in an airliner that day to shooting one down. That's a whole nother story, but I bring that up because I got furloughed. I lost my job. I was going to be a rich airline pilot and work one day a month and hang out with flight attendants, and boom, in the blink of an eye, that was gone. So when I was on active duty, you don't join the military to get rich. Obviously, I taught myself how to trade. So I was trading options and stocks and was doing pretty good at it. So after I got furloughed by the airlines, I popped up on the radar of one of the largest volatility arbitrage options trading firms in the country up in Chicago. And they brought me up there. I'm like, holy crap. It was like the movie Trading Places. I was Eddie Murphy, just a guy off the street kind of doing what I do. And they were impressed with it. I bring that up because I left a fighter squadron. I stayed flying fighters for a year as I went up to Chicago, but I just couldn't commute back and stay current, which you want to be current in a fighter jet. You just don't want to fly that thing once in a while. You're going to kill yourself.
Oh, for sure.
But I bring that up because I went from a fighter squadron where you trust the men and women with your life, or they're not in that organization for long. And I went to a Wall Street firm where I couldn't trust somebody to watch my wallet for 5 minutes when I went to the head. And I'm not joking. I mean, these people singularly focused on money. So that pushed me even further away from my mission, myself, my bride, my kids, my God. And it was bad. There's a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol on Wall Street, man. So I was spiraling the drain. I was in a bad place. All the childhood trauma, military trauma. Now I'm at a Wall Street firm making more money than I've ever seen in my life, which actually made me even more hollow.
But you're isolated.
Yeah.
No team.
No brotherhood, no sisterhood, no squadron, no infrastructure. So I was
and no greater purpose, because money does not fill the hole for greater purpose at all.
No, they could have funneled even more money at me and it would have made it worse. Right. And I love when I get it. Poor people like, oh, I'd love to have that problem. I've been there, man. Money, absolutely. I get it. You got to pay your mortgage and all sorts of other shit, the basics. But at the end of the day, man, I hung out with multi-billionaires. The people that own the firm are now insane billionaires. They're probably the most miserable people I've ever met in my life. The richest people I know are miserable. So I bring that up because this was all swirling to a head. And then my buddy Swede died. And I'm like, that jarred me out of my fog. I might not be here. I've had a couple dark nights of the soul laying on a bathroom floor and just the vision of my children and my wife kept me here. So after Swede died, I said, you know what, man, I got to do something about veteran suicide. I'm starting a foundation. What do? I stood in front of the whiteboard in my office. How do you keep a veteran from killing themselves? I'm like, help them write resumes, buy a suit, help them pay the rent. I was clueless. And then God is awesome and always right on time. A buddy of mine said, hey, man, there's a group of Navy SEAL vets and Special Forces guys that go down to Mexico and they do psychedelic assisted therapy to heal their trauma, their traumatic brain injuries. And there's a really cool group going in a couple weeks. Would you want to go? And I said, man, go to Mexico and do drugs with Navy SEALs? That sounds like a great weekend. Sign me up. I had no clue what I was getting in for.
Which psychedelic was it?
I had never even heard, psychedelics are for hippies and anti-war.
Sure. But what psychedelics were they using?
Ibogaine. So
yeah, that ain't recreational.
What's that?
That ain't recreational.
It was a 14-hour. I've done some challenging things in my life, man. This is one of the most, if not the most, challenging experience of my life. It was 14 hours. It was not fun. It was not recreational, but I got 40 years of therapy in 14 hours. Yeah. It was without it. I lost my faith for decades. I went from altar boy, believing in God on an altar. Don't piss that dude off, man. You'll burn in hell the rest of your life. To what type of God, allows me to be molested, my sister to die, and all my buddies to die? Ain't no God. Well, guess what, man? I reconnected with absolutely there's God. I reconnected with my father. I reconnected with my sister Monica.
You saw them in the experience.
Absolutely.
And are you sure that it was them, or?
I'm beyond a shadow of a doubt
that it really was them, not not your brain making a reasonable facsimile, like something that you could recognize. Like
no,
it
man.
was
So
them.
a lot of people don't understand how these things. Ibogaine is a waking dream. You're wide awake, so you got your eye shades on. I'm doing like a one-man luge, man, just with all these eye shades up. I went down. Everybody should know who Marcus Luttrell is, Navy lone survivor. So I went with Marcus. I went with JT, Jared Taylor from Black Rifle Coffee.
Would love an intro to both those dudes if you could.
JJ, another Navy SEAL vet who was a teammate with Marcus, and then an NFL player, a veteran. His name's Robert Gallery. He was an All-American at Iowa, played for the Raiders for a long time, and I rode in the car with him. So you fly into San Diego, and we all jump in cars and we drive down to Mexico. Why? Because if you do this in San Diego, you're a felon. If you do it an hour south at a clinic, it'll save and change your life. But I rode in the car with Robert Gallery, 6'7", 350-pound, dead iceberg. This massive dude, he was death. 72 hours later, leaving that place, he was a different human being. And he started his own nonprofit to get Ibogaine to NFL guys that are suffering from CTE and stuff like that. But back to your point, what I'm getting at is eye shades up. There's Marcus. There's the nurses. I'm on an EKG. I'm on Earth. Eye shades back down. Absolute movie. So your ego, it served me well to get to where I got in life as a fighter pilot and all sorts of stuff like that. But ego stands for edge God out.
Does.
The ego is a veil between this reality and everything else, man.
Yeah.
And
it's the barrier. It's what it is.
So these sacraments, I don't call them drugs. I don't call them medicines. They are sacraments to me. Just like when I was a young Catholic kid taking the communion and the bread and the wine. This saved my life, reconnected me with God. And here's how I know it was them. Because, when my sister appeared, she was angelic. I just could not even remember her being that beautiful. And then my father, and he could not have been happier. And I couldn't remember the last time I had seen my dad smile. He was just he was a sad man. And when they both appeared, they were perfect. And I felt peace. I hadn't felt that probably in my life, maybe when I was a child. I can't remember being so at peace. But they started to, pixelate's a bad word, but they started to dissolve and leave. And it was an absolute horror. And I was calling out, begging them, please don't leave me. Don't leave me again. Please. It was a horror. They heard me and they came back and they smiled even brighter. And I just felt absolute love. And then they started to leave again. But I followed them this time and they went into everything. I saw them go into my daughter. They went into the trees, the ocean, the sunrise. They never left. They never left. They are here right now on this podcast, man. And I was healed. That was no hallucination. That was no chemical thing. That was them. And
So our
ain't
loved
nobody
ones
gonna
never leave us.
never. It's a higher state of consciousness. We're stuck in it, man. I mean, what is it? The visible, the spectrum, the visible spectrum that humans can see is like that, and then it's the same thing with hearing. There is just it's insane.
When my
And
dad,
but
when we knew that he was on the bubble and only had a few weeks to go, I dove into the NDE videos, near death experience videos, and I still watch them. You know,
yep,
and I hope and I pray that that when I do pray, that it gets to him, and I hope that that he's okay. You know, and I pray for it all
absolutely.
the time.
I promise you, I died, and my foundation people always kick me under the table when I talk like this, but it's the truth. I died. It was an NDE. It was ego death. I obviously didn't die, but 2 days later, we sat with 5-MeO DMT, toad. Right? It's Bufo alvarius, which is the toad. And man, they sold it to me. It was deceptive advertising because after the 14-hour Ibogaine experience, I'm like, holy shit, man! I just got hit by a bus driven by God. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. What's next? And they're like, no. The toad's about a 20-minute experience. I'm like, 20 minutes? I can do that standing on my head. Well, speaking of standing on my head, at the time, what was I? I was 52. I think as a kid, maybe I tried to do a flip into a pool maybe once or twice, and I never did it again because I always landed on my back and it hurt. As a 52-year-old man in Mexico, I did a flip in a bed. Don't remember it, but the 5-MeO DMT for me was an exorcism. When I took that medicine, within the blink of it was a Millennium Falcon jumped to hyperspace. I went from here instantly into forever, to love, light, energy, oneness with God.
Did you feel the acceleration, like a launch?
I can't even. There is zero. It was almost in the blink of an eye. It was one of the most violent but spiritual things I've ever experienced. So to your point, and you never want to hear a pilot talk like this, but I have no fear of death. Now, I want to get old, have grandkids, yell at them to get off the yard, but I have absolutely no fear of death. I know exactly what's going to happen. So I was one with God, and I kind of got the message like, man, everything's okay. It's always okay. This is the default natural state of what you all were supposed to be or what you are. And I'll never forget God telling me, Matthew, I don't make imperfect things. The drugs, the alcohol, your trauma, all of that stuff, he didn't have hands, but it was just energy. It cleaned me. And I had my soul back, that shiny, bright soul that I came into the world with. But 52 years of everything a funk. It was God took a hammer and just cracked all of it, and it was perfect. The flip came because God was like, well, you can't hang, man. You got shit to do. Go home, type of thing. So I remember trying to fit back into this, and there was still some darkness, some still a little regret or shame, or I wish I had done this in me. And I remember they told me I did this. This is half me, half the people holding space, debriefing me later and telling me. They said, man, first of all, you transcended that. My guide, who had been doing this for her whole life, essentially, she's like, I've read about it. I've heard about it. I've never seen it. And I'm like, what? She's like, you transcended. You were in a V shape in the bed with your arms and legs moving in perfect symmetry. And I'm like, I couldn't do that if you paid me. And everybody was like, dude, you were.
That's some Jackie Chan shit.
Yeah. So when I was one with God, they said they could see it. She's like, it made my life, man. I got to see somebody who transcended. And then they said I got into a fetal position and I got really red. And I think that was when I was trying to squeeze back into this thing. And when the remaining funk wouldn't leave, I yelled at the top of I haven't yelled that loud in my life since my dad had died. And I guess, I don't remember the second time, but I guess there was still whatever little left. They're like, dude, you took the deepest breath we've ever heard anybody take in their life. And then you loud even longer and louder than the first time. And before we even knew it, you flipped. And then I came out of the medicine, the sacrament, and I had never felt better in my life. And I looked at the people around the bed. They were, first of all, they looked like they saw a ghost. They were all crying. They looked terrified. And I looked at them. I'm like, are you guys okay? And they're like, are you? I'm like, I've never felt better in my life. They're like, okay, good. And I sat there and cried, man, just the happiest cry of my life. And it's cool because later at dinner.
So I'm sorry. How far in between the Ibogaine experience and the 5-MeO-DMT?
I don't even want to tell you because it's almost malpractice. Back then, it was a day and a half.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad that happened in my life. I'm glad I got exactly what I got. They have completely redone that stuff down at those clinics. I think they're 5 to 7 day retreats, which is even pushing it. I got to be honest with you, man. Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT are two individual sacraments that have their own. I mean, people just do Bufo retreats. People just do Ibogaine. Standard military, though, back in the day. We got a weekend. Ibogaine Friday night, Toad Sunday morning, back at the airport Monday. Let's squeeze as much of this into one weekend as we can and get as many checks in the block. So
now, if you were to parse out Ibogaine versus 5-MeO-DMT, two different substances, what fixes what? Like, can you sort of categorize them? Like the Ibogaine does this and the 5-MeO does that, or do they do the same thing but differently?
You ready? Yes to everything you just said. First of all, it depends on you. Ibogaine is incredible for traumatic brain injuries. The Stanford study, they're doing all sorts of studies on Ibogaine and neuroplasticity. We helped a Navy SEAL who was a breacher, right at the door, concussion. He showed me his brain scans from the VA, and they were dark and gray and black. 3 months after sitting with Ibogaine once, they were completely clear.
Are you familiar with mefloquine poisoning?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So my previous episode, I really hope that you listened to it. A psychologist out of the States, San Diego, maybe. But we were talking about mefloquine poisoning, which is mefloquine was a anti-malaria drug that both American and Canadian military forced the troops to take. There was no way around it. You had to do it. And
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. And 1 out of 10 were poisoned by it. And the poisoning, the symptoms mimic PTSD and CTE and other brain injuries, but aren't quite the same. So, but they mimic. So, like if you look at the DSM-5, the list of symptoms, the nightmares, emotional regulation, et cetera, lines right up. So it's actually pretty tough to diagnose. But I asked him about Ibogaine and like if he's looked into it. And like most medical doctors, well, double blind study, blah, blah, placebo controlled. I'm like, well, that's not really where I was going with it. But if Ibogaine, because I'm aware of this because it's become legalized in Texas. I've been following that one incredibly well-spoken guy that looks like the guy from The Hangover. But but he does, right?
Yeah.
And kind of sounds like him too. But
Brian Hubbard.
Brian Hubbard, yeah. And it looks like Zach Galifianakis. But what an incredible spokesperson and incredibly intelligent. Um, but listening to him talk and talking about the brain repair, the actual brain repair from Ibogaine, like, well, all these things boil down to brain damage. So methylquin poisoning is brain damage. I
Mm.
wonder if it helps that too. I would love to see a dozen methylquin poisoned people go and get Ibogaine therapy and see what happens.
I'm not even going to go out on a limb and say it ain't going to hurt, and it most likely will cure them. Period. They're
Yeah,
doing
that's what I
studies.
was thinking.
They're doing studies on Parkinson's. They're doing studies on Alzheimer's with Ibogaine.
Tell me what you know about Parkinson's. Let's pause there for a second. What have you heard about Parkinson's? What have you seen?
With the Ibogaine? First of all, it's good preventive maintenance. If you have Parkinson's in your family, a lot of guys are doing and gals are doing Ibogaine as a precursor, and knock on wood, no, it hasn't occurred to them. And it's made symptoms in current folks with Parkinson's less. So groundbreaking. This is the ultimate brain sacrament, in my opinion.
So doesn't psilocybin do the same thing, or is Ibogaine just better at it?
Ibogaine's better at it. So Ibogaine comes from Iboga, Iboga. Iboga is root bark from Central West Africa, Gabon, mainly Gabon. So Iboga has 12 alkaloids, nitrogen-based compounds in it. One of them is called Ibogaine. Another's called noribogaine. So Ibogaine, we isolate that from Iboga in the West, and you take it with a capsule. I've done Iboga a couple years after Ibogaine. I went down to Costa Rica and actually ate the root bark. It's a little fear factor-ish. It's like going to a carpenter's workshop and grabbing sawdust and just chomping on it and guzzling water, trying to chew down this ball of root bark in your mouth. So in the West, Ibogaine, when I took Ibogaine, it was like 2 Tylenol capsules and a glass of water. Noribogaine. So Ibogaine is the journey, is the 12, 14, 19. Robert Gallery was down. He was down for about a day and a half. They had to run an IV on him, and I could tell that the doctors and nurses knew that we were a little worried. The rest of us, the 4 of us downstairs, like kept looking upstairs, and they said, there's a lot of work. The medicine's doing some serious work on Robert. Everything's fine. And they could not have been more right. You need to go look at his before and after pictures. I didn't do Ibogaine to be a better trader or anything like that, man. The next day, everything was brighter, right? So Ibogaine goes in and it scrubs the 5-H2A receptors. So these receptors where addiction stuff is, porn, alcohol, caffeine, heroin, you name the addiction, it goes in there and scrubs those. It resets the receptors. So you're clean. I was a drinker. I don't know if you can be a good drinker. I was a bad drinker. I was not a good drunk. I hated drinking, but I did it up to a year. A year after sitting with Ibogaine once, if I smelled alcohol or if I looked at alcohol, it made me dry heave. It made me, I got a physical negative reaction to it. Now, 4.5 years later, if my wife and I are having a steak or some pasta, I can have a glass of red wine or 2 with my steak. But
that's where it ends.
Old Whiz, a glass of wine or 2 was 1 or 2 bottles for me. So it's a victory. I can control. I still don't.
Psilocybin helped me get sober. I was never, exactly, I don't have the big slobbering drunk stories.
Nope.
Bottom of the barrel stories.
Correct.
But it was just starting to slide, and COVID did it. And all of a sudden I was up to about half a dozen drinks a night. I was like, wait a second.
Yep.
And I did a couple of microdoses of psilocybin.
Yeah.
And the psilocybin just showed me the path. It showed me what alcohol actually was globally, that it was a lie, right, that it had a price tag. And it just showed me. I'm like, it's a lie. You're buying into the lie. It's not a good time. It costs more than there's a big price tag. And everything dumb I've ever said in my life that makes me cringe or was shameful, there was always a couple of drinks in me. And it
Yep.
showed me this, and it showed me the connections. And I
Correct.
have, so I'm well over 5 years without a drop.
That's
And
great.
yeah, no, alcohol, it lowers
Yeah.
your vibration and keeps you further from God.
Well, and so most addictions, Dr. Gabor Mate does a great job of this. Most addictions, fill in the blank what the addiction is, stem from some sort of trauma. It's not
Yeah.
just you weren't born into this planet wanting booze or wanting heroin. Something happened and there was a triggering event. So not only does the Ibogaine scrub neuroreceptors, um, it's while it's doing that, it's also giving you a movie of your life and past traumas and today, and then what your future looks like. So it's working on all cylinders to really heal things holistically. So
Okay,
that was a long
we're
answer,
just going
short
to take
question.
sorry, Wiz, we got to take a 3-minute break. And I'm back. Okay, we were talking about the differences of Ibogaine and what's the other thing?
Bufo or 5-MeO DMT, Toad. There's like 90 different names for it, but it's all the same thing. So Ibogaine, good for traumatic brain injury, addiction, and trauma issues. 5-MeO DMT could potentially help with all of those things. But to me and to many of the people I've worked with, Ibogaine is kind of an internal, let's fix you. And 5-MeO DMT is the exact opposite. It is you are everything. When I exploded into literally forever, at dinner that night, I got a free anniversary present for the rest of my life because my guide said, "Do you remember one of the first things you said when you came out of the sacrament?" I'm like, "Nope." She said, "You said, I can't wait to tell Susie, my wife, can't wait to tell Susie I love her forever because I finally know what forever means." And the toad answered a burning question I had had for decades, 40 years ish, 30 years. I always wondered if my sister or my dad were bored, meaning, are you in heaven, like looking at your watch? Like, where's everybody? It's kind of been a while, kind of sitting up here on a cloud waiting for the 5-MeO DMT. When I exploded into forever, guess what forever is? Now. There is no time. When I experienced that, it was absolute bliss, but no, hey man, this bliss has been going on for 5 minutes. When's the bliss going to end? And there was no future. There was only that moment, and it was perfect. I've never felt that amount of love and awesomeness. I mean, so it's tough to answer because that's what I got. That's why I hesitate sometimes telling people about my journeys. Is like, yours ain't going to be anywhere close to this. These sacraments give you exactly what you need. Might not be what you want, but you're going to get exactly what you need. Anytime I've gone to sit with these things again to get a little bit of a tune up, never like the first time or each other time, right? There's all different things that pop up. For example, when I did go to Costa Rica and because I wanted to try the actual root bark, well, if Ibogaine did this, let me actually try the root bark it came from. And I had a tough year that year. It was like the foundation, No Fallen Heroes, had been airborne for a year. And I got to be honest with you, man, I thought I was failing. I'm like, I'm giving grants, I'm holding space, I'm going on retreats, I'm putting the ladder down to try and help my fellow brothers and sisters heal, and it just ain't working. They're not healing, or I was just in a funk. And man, sitting with Iboga, God never disappears, but God reappeared, and it was kind of like what are you doing back? Like, you're good, man. You got this. I love you. Thanks for checking in. What's up? Type of thing. And I was like, well, I'm failing. I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to help. You told me to go out and do this. In my journal, written in chicken scratch the day after my first Ibogaine experience. One of the first words I wrote was apostle. And now I know what that actually meant. But they said, like, hey, the next day after the Ibogaine, just journal, man. You might not remember, just write, and it might make sense to you later. Well, it did. But I'll never forget this, because God said, Matthew, you can't heal anybody. That's my job. Keep doing what you're doing. Carry them, pick them up, drag them to the door. They have to walk through. And then I got it. So, son, you're doing great, but you can't heal anyone. Man, that was 100-pound weight off my shoulders. That healed me again. So I bring that up because each time we do, the guys, we tried to get together and do like an annual knock the rust off. And that's a good thing. And it's funny, people are like, oh my God, you need to use it again. I'm like, again, it's a year later. And it ain't like having a drink every Friday night. This is, and some people are one and done. So I never want to do the 5-MeO DMT again. I got it. Right? We say this in this space.
So this is a good segue
once you get the message, hang up the phone. Right? I don't engage in psychedelic tourism just to chase something. You got to do the work. Right?
That's a perfect segue, Whiz. So I've observed that people that do the ayahuasca retreats, like Will Smith, you read his book and 30, 40, 50 times he goes back to the ayahuasca.
No, man.
So I'm thinking if you're going back that many times, how effective is it? How healing is it if you're going back dozens of times? So what's your thoughts on ayahuasca?
That's not the ayahuasca. That's not the ayahuasca's fault. That's the person's fault. It's funny because as we talked about earlier, I didn't know anything about psychedelics. They were hippies in the 60s, protesting the Vietnam War. They're felonies. Those people are weird. I knew nothing about psychedelics. So when my buddy said, hey, go to Mexico in 2 weeks to try this stuff, I went to the top of psychedelic Mount Everest. Ibogaine is the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. And we say it's granddad, right? Because ayahuasca, MDMA, psilocybin, mescaline, they're mom and dad. Mom and dad love you, and they'll take care of you. Granddad, he obviously loves you, but he might beat the shit out of you also if you need it. So when I bring this up, because when I got home and I'm starting to tell people like, hey, I sat with this Ibogaine, and people are like, oh, that's great. I'm going for my 30th ayahuasca sit. Then I'm like, oh my God. Because I equated ayahuasca with a 14-hour ass kicking. And I'm like, you've done this 30 times? Are you insane? And then obviously I started doing my research and, become a 500-pound head on this stuff. So ayahuasca and the people repeatedly going back, they're not putting in the work. That next morning after the first Ibogaine experience, it was Christmas morning. I was healed. I'm a new human. I'm jumping around. And I remember the doc and my guide just kind of laughing and shaking their head. They're like, Whiz, 5% is the medicine. It's here. 95% is what you do with it when you get home. And I think they were wrong. I'm going to say 1% and 99 because you have to integrate. When I got to the San Diego airport to fly home, I had a clean piece of paper. I wasn't a new human. I was who I was before all the crap. But I had a new lease on life. What you do with that clean piece of paper is up to you. If you go back to the things that made you sick, the people, the situations, the places, you're going to have a tough time integrating. So when I hear I've never sat with ayahuasca, I've sat with everything else, and I'm not going to sit with ayahuasca, it doesn't call to me. Again, 5 years ago, Whiz, if I heard me talking like this, I would have given me a wedgie and stealing my lunch money. But it's the truth. These things call to you.
Let's see if I understand. So when you say doing the work, let's go back to my psilocybin experience, and I was shown about alcohol. Well, okay, Now you've seen it. Now you know better. What do you do with it?
Correct.
I made the choice to take that information and apply it to my life. Is that what you mean by doing the
Yeah,
work?
that's it, man. Coming home and everything that I saw and experienced, and God laid out the future to me, and I'm actually living it. I mean, it literally, you have to put in the work. If you go back to the thing, if you had started drinking again after that psilocybin experience, I guarantee you would have gotten sick. You would have felt like you would have felt awful about yourself and probably physically too. So that wouldn't have been putting in the work. Or actually, after you felt bad and sick, then you would have been like, wait, now I'm really never drinking. So if you don't integrate, it's integration. We give 4 calls with our coaches. You're the guy that, helped you through all this stuff. You have workbooks. I treat every time as a combat hop. I go in with 5 questions and 5 intentions. Questions are things I want to know, man. Intentions are what I would love to receive out of this. We got a 40-page manual you got to work on before you go in. This isn't just, hey, let's meet on a retreat and do this stuff, man. You do 2 briefing calls, you do your manuals, your workbooks. You go into this thing as humanly armed as possible as you can to get the most out of it. And then you have to integrate. When I land aboard an aircraft carrier, the flight is not over. I got to debrief. So the integration.
That's the difference between recreational psilocybin use and therapeutic. It's setting that attention ahead of time.
Correct.
Is that what it is?
There's 2 things that we talk about with this work: set and setting. What's your mindset going into the sit with the sacrament, and where are you doing it? It never ceases to amaze me when somebody's like, "Oh, you've done mushrooms? I've done mushrooms. I had an awful experience." I'm like, "Let me guess, college, bar, or concert?" And oh yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, well, it's almost like these compounds are warning you or telling you, don't do this stuff here, and not for preparation. So usually, some of the recreational folks, you get scared is because they were not prepared, and guess what? They learned their lesson, right? So these compounds,
or they resisted it, and it was that resistance that made it a bad trip.
We have a saying: "What you resist persists." Right? If they had done the pre-work, they would have known that, hey, man, if there's something challenging or whatever, running from it ain't going to help. You got to lean into it. You got to shine some light on things that are dark or scary, because if you had done that, it would have evaporated. You would have recognized that that's not scary and that's not real or whatever. But people who don't put in the work, I don't see good outcomes with them. I think we hit our century mark with the last retreat, meaning we've given over 100 grants to veterans, first responders, and family members. And knock on wood, not a single person has come home and said, complete waste of time. What was that? Or I'm worse. Now, have there people who come home and had problems or challenges integrating? Yeah, but they powered through it and rose even higher. So this is deadly serious. This is not recreational, and we put a lot of work into getting somebody ready for a retreat. And since we're mainly working with veterans, first responders, and family members, they get the regime, they get the checklist, they get the, hey, a week prior to retreat, booze stop, no more steak, eat healthy, step down your medication. So we are very regimented in our approach to this. But it's funny because I call it a flight manual. In my flight manual I wrote for our foundation, I have a paragraph right at the beginning. I plagiarized it from the front page of every Navy flight manual that says, nothing in this book can take the place of good head work and judgment. Meaning, you can deviate from the procedures in here, but you better have a damn good reason. And if, so what I'm getting at is there was no amount of preparation on this planet I could have done before sitting with the Ibogaine. However, doing all the preparation that I did do helped me even more. There's no way.
It's kind of like entering a war zone. I've said this all the time. I've been training for 3.5 years before I went into a war zone. All the training in the world doesn't actually prepare you for being in a war zone.
That's
And when you
exactly right.
finally get there, like, holy shit.
That's a
And
great
it
analogy.
takes a couple of weeks to sort of acclimatize to it. So,
Yep.
I mean, you prepare still. Doesn't mean you don't prepare. You still prepare as much as you can, but
Correct.
once you're in it, you just got to ride that bull.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. That's a great analogy. Is if you hadn't done all that preparation, it would have sucked a hell of a lot more,
Yeah.
or maybe you would have even gotten smoked. But since you did all of that, at least you're somewhat prepared. Just like Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Or no plan for combat survives the first bullet shot at you by the enemy. But at least you have something to deviate from. So that's why
So,
we tell. Yeah, that's
something
why
you
we
said
tell people
earlier,
to have the questions and the intentions.
about prep, no steak. Why?
It's I'm a steak guy, and it's hard for me. You just want as clean a vessel. Throttle back off of the big stuff, the big red meat and the colon type of thing. A week from now, eat light, no drinking, step down the medication. So there's probably a better reason for that my more granola counselors can tell me. But I remember reading it. I'm like, man, I'm a steak and potatoes guy. I need my stuff. And they're like, well, and they gave me a great reason. I think that's part of it, but I'm not sure exactly the reason, but it made sense for me.
Okay. Another one. Just yesterday, I was listening to Alex Jones on Tucker Carlson talking about psychedelics, and he said something I've never heard anybody say before. Now, every time I've thought, no, that guy's got to be wrong, I end up being the one that's wrong. But what Alex said was that there's all these tech guys that have had psychedelic experiences. They've done the psychedelics, and they get visited by like the machine elves or whatever the little critters are, telling them that there's too many people in the world. We have to depopulate, and that's why there's and it's like a ubiquitous message that a lot of people have had. Yet I've never heard anybody say that before, and I've been chasing psychedelics and have experienced them myself. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, it's from DMT. So
Ah,
let's not confuse things. 5-MeO DMT is completely different from DMT. DMT is in ayahuasca. DMT is I've heard the same things you have or seen the YouTube videos like, oh, I see these elf entities or something like that.
is that
DMT,
from NNDMT?
5-MeO DMT is separate from DMT.
But the DMT that's separate, is that known as NNDMT, or are you sure?
I'm not sure. I just know it as regular DMT as opposed to
Okay, so
5-MeO.
only two types that you're aware of?
5-MeO DMT, which is the toad, and then DMT. It might be NMDMT from ayahuasca. It's a completely different sacrament, and again, one of the reasons it just doesn't call to me. I have no idea what they're talking about, but I see all the videos and hear people talking about that type of experience with ayahuasca. I have zero interest in that, but out of 100 grant recipients, not a single person has ever reported any sort of gremlins telling them to depopulate the world.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah, I'm not a big DMT guy, man. And anytime I've looked into ayahuasca operations, I'm not doing a sacrament where literally on the flight schedule it's got a half an hour of purging involved, right? Like I have zero interest in crapping my pants or taking a leak or vomiting all over the place, having a full body explosion. It's just not. If you're looking to heal, I'm not I would not be recommending ayahuasca, especially if you're doing it for your 20th, 30th time. That's
Yeah, and everybody I know that does it, they do it a lot, and
okay.
I don't get it.
Nope. I don't want to sit with these. Maybe every year or so I'll do a tune up. But man, I have zero interest to do anything like that multiple times. I do the work. I look at, and again, I hate judging. Everybody's individual. And if they're doing it 20, 30 times and everything's healed and everything's great, good on them, but I don't agree with it. And
Are you familiar with Warrior's Heart?
mm-mm.
An American outfit as well. I've had them on, forget the guy's name, but that's all psilocybin.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to compare notes.
Well, so we, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, whenever it was, I started, I have to use the word, even though it makes my skin crawl. I started a church. My wife and I started a church down here in Florida, an entheogenic church. It's
What
called
does that mean?
Sacred Warrior Fellowship, and we use psilocybin as our main sacrament. So under
Okay.
the First Amendment of the Constitution that I defended for 15 years is religious freedom. We have the God-given right to practice our religion however we see fit. I am more spiritual today than I ever was as a Catholic altar boy. So we use these as sacraments in ceremony down here in South Florida under the First Amendment, and psilocybin's our main sacrament. We'd love to do Ibogaine eventually as a sacrament. You need the infrastructure. I need an ER doc. I need EKGs. I need a magnesium drip, and I need a couple nurses to hold space throughout the night. So the infrastructure required for Ibogaine is significant. We don't need any infrastructure for psilocybin.
The only one that's legal up in Canada are the ketamine clinics. They're taking off, and they're fusion clinics. So they mix ketamine with therapy and other modalities and kind of throw them all together into a pot. People have been, seems to be getting some efficacy out of that, better than talk therapy by itself, that's for sure.
Hey,
but do you have an opinion on ketamine?
Yeah. So what's interesting, man, is again, after I got back from doing the Ibogaine, and people are like, I'm doing ayahuasca for the 50th time, and I'm like completely confused. Ketamine. So I'll admit I was wrong, because after getting back from Ibogaine, people are like, oh, if a veteran's suicidal, get him ketamine treatment right away. I'm like, that sounds like the worst thing you could ever do. If he's like suicidal, you're going to get him some man-made drug made in a lab based on profit. I was wrong. I actually went out to California in Santa Monica and sat with ketamine. I did it. I needed a little bit of a tune-up. Again, running a foundation. So when I sit in ceremony and hold space, man, you see demons. You see exorcists. You take on a lot of that energy. So that's why we need to, as facilitators, we need to tune up every once in a while, man, because it's helping people heal. It's dark. I mean, they feel great and they leave, give you a hug, and they're crying, but I sat with ketamine, and it's funny because they gave it to us. It was a lozenge. It wasn't injectable or whatever. It was a lozenge. And the guy said, all right, so in about, 45 minutes, you'll be able to move around. Wait till an hour to get up. I'm like putting in my mouth guard and put on a chin strap, getting ready for a 14-hour, MMA match like Ibogaine, because I always compare everything to the Mount Everest of psychedelics. I'm like, 45 minutes, man, what? Well, guess what? I get it. It was I don't like the word disassociative. I don't like me separating from me. Does that make sense? With the toad and the Ibogaine, you're you and you're you with God and the universe. But ketamine was a little disassociative for me, but I got it. It was a mini journey. And it was very peaceful. And man, 45 minutes to an hour later, looking at everybody else, I'm like, I got it. So the answer to me is 1000% yes. If a guy or a gal veteran is really needing something, ketamine. Have them do the, whatever it's called, the Yale protocol, 6 sessions in 2 weeks or whatever it is, and it can stabilize them. It's a triage.
When people are really acute, I recommend it all the time. Even though I haven't experienced it myself, yep. I've had enough guests on, both people that have done it themselves and medical professionals.
I've seen people heal just with the ketamine protocol. I've also people get stabilized, and it was a bridge to go sit with psilocybin or an Ibogaine. So
well, I think especially if you're acute. Like if you're acute, then it's my belief that you should be aggressive in what you do. And if you're not willing to take any of the any of the psychedelics, at least go into ketosis. Do a 24-hour or 48-hour fast, water fast with electrolytes.
Yeah.
That fast does a lot. Once your brain starts firing on ketones, man, that takes the foot off the gas really well.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, ketamine, I did a 180 on. I went from that sounds dumb to that sounds great. Because I don't, aside from Maya, I don't send anybody anywhere, and I don't recommend any sacraments that I haven't been to that place, and I haven't sat with it myself. I blaze a path, so I had to do that with ketamine.
Are you familiar with stellate ganglion block?
Heard of those too. Never did it. Know people who have done it. I know of all the stuff, man. The hyperbolic or hyperbaric chambers, the STG or STBs, whatever. I've heard of all of that stuff, but I got to be honest with you, man. At least at No Fallen Heroes, it's like a funnel. Everybody tries everything at the top of the funnel, man, and most of them end up right here, going to sit with the sacrament. Some people,
well, that's what my show is as well. I go out and I find different modalities of healing all over the planet and bring them on here, and we talk about it. And this is episode 343. So same kind of idea. And where I'm landing is Iboga. And here's why. Like the stellate ganglion block has really high efficacy. The best one that I know of is a guy named Dr. Eugene Limpov out of Chicago, and Canadian Special Forces going down there on their own dime, because Veterans Affairs Canada doesn't cover it, of course. So they go there on their own dime to the clinic in Chicago, and it's the vagus nerve gets frozen. They do one side one day, they do the other side the other day, and then they throw in some ketamine and some therapy on top of it, and pretty good results. But the ketamine and the therapy part is good, but the stellate ganglion block isn't dealing with the issue; it's blocking the issue.
Amen.
Right. So I've done a show on. I've done a few shows on coping versus healing. Coping's great. Coping makes room for healing, but crack cocaine is also coping. So, maybe be cautious with it. I know people that ride their motorcycle 8 billion kilometers a year as coping. Well, then you're not healing. Like, hey, ride your bike. I got a Goldwing. Fucking love it. It's great, right? Like ride your bike, do your thing, do your coping. But anything can be an addiction, and anything can be unhealthy. Yeah. If that's your all in coping thing, and you're spending all of your energy coping instead of living healthy.
Yeah.
And that's my issue with stellate ganglion block, is that it's really, really good coping, but it ain't fixing.
Yeah.
It's not healing.
That's what we do in the States. You go to the VA, if you can get an appointment at the VA 10 months into the future, what's wrong? Well, let me throw some prescriptions down your throat. It's a revolving door between the VA and Big Pharma. I remind people all the time, there are so many different healing modalities: yoga, meditation, breath work, STBs, cryotherapy, heat, climbing a mountain in Nepal. There are so many different healing modalities. These sacred sacraments are one of them, but I also say that radical trauma might need radical healing. And that's exactly what these sacraments are. And it's really interesting to me, because it was Time one of the big magazines the other day. It's on one of my tabs that's open right now. It's is Ibogaine the new whatever, the new something? I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually the old. So we in the West right now are pretending like, look at this Ibogaine stuff we found, or look at these potential magic mushrooms. It's like, man, thank you, Richard Nixon, for your stupid war on drugs that made these things a felony.
Well, it's probably half the reason. Like the war on drugs came in after the 60s, like really. And with the 60s, all the best music out of the 60s and 70s, all that best music was because of drugs, and it's funny. Oh, those are drugs. Here's some SSRIs. I'm like, hang on. I thought you just said drugs are bad. Yeah. Like pick a lane here. Drugs good or drugs bad?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how much money we making. If we're making money, they're good. If we're not making money, they're bad.
Well, here in the States, it's I was going to say it's comical, but it's not. It's infuriating. The definition of a Schedule 1 drug in the United States is no therapeutic use and a high risk of addiction. That's a cigarette and alcohol. Addictive and will kill you. Legal.
Yeah. I'm
Ibogaine
gambling.
was the most therapeutic thing I had done in 52 years, and it was anti-addictive. It destroyed alcohol. So here in America, we label things the exact opposite of what they are. Schedule 1 are these things that can heal and save your life, and alcohol and tobacco are legal. I stopped going to DC about 3 years ago after I was behind closed doors with a congressman. He said, Whiz, I love what you're doing. And I'm like, all right. He said, well, you're going to have a problem with the big pharma and the alcohol and tobacco folks. And I'm like, isn't that your job? What do you mean I'm going to have a problem? So
this conversation, like I turned to Christianity about 2 years ago, and I keep hearing like what you just said. I don't know if other people heard it the way I heard it, but the exact opposite of the truth, the anti-truth. Well, yeah, that's our society. All of society is an anti-truth. We're living in an inversion. It's talked about in the New Testament. We're living in it's not just a lie. It's the opposite of the truth. We're living in a world of anti-truth, like the exact opposite of the frickin' truth. I'm not a flat earther, but I could understand how people go down that rabbit hole because everything else is the opposite of the truth. Why not that too? Yeah. Not a flat earther, just say it.
Yeah.
I believe we live on a big old ball flying through space. But
our government labels things the exact opposite of what they are. The Inflation Reduction Act caused 40-year high inflation. Obama's Affordable Care Act is bankrupting the country. So whatever they name it, the exact opposite is the truth. You're right.
Yeah, Health Canada is not about your health.
Correct. That's exactly right. So they label things the exact opposite. And it's interesting because one of my day jobs is I teach people how to trade at Top Gun Options. You want a hot stock tip? Buy the publicly traded psychedelic companies yesterday. Because here's what's happening. I'm on the board of one of these. We're using Ibogaine. So you're not getting a 14-hour get hit by a bus driven by God experience. Ibogaine is the anti-addictive property. You take this a couple times, alcohol use disorder destroyed. You're not going to Mexico. You're not spending 10 grand, cured. There is no way on God.
There's another wrinkle to it that's hitting me here, Wiz. And psychedelics temporarily turn off your ego, which is required in order to connect with who you actually are. Post-traumatic stress injuries are injuries of disconnection. They disconnect you from who you actually are. Your ego is a disconnector. It disconnects you from who you actually are.
And God.
So once it's been turned off just long enough to look behind the curtain to see the Wiz of Oz there, once you've looked behind the curtain, you're like, oh. And then when it all falls off and your ego comes rolling back in over a week or two, you still remember, oh yeah, no, hang on. That's my ego.
Correct.
That's not actually true. That's just my ego. Behind the curtain is the real me.
Correct.
And pulling that curtain behind and seeing the wizard behind the curtain, that just opens you up as far as wait a second. You're trying to apply to my ego right now. That's how all the division. That's how politics works. That's how you get divided. They play on your ego. And if your ego is driving the bus, that's how you get manipulated. That's how propaganda works. Propaganda works through appealing to your ego. So if you turn off your ego, propaganda doesn't work on you anymore. And that is probably the biggest reason that the government is in no hurry to let free and support the psychedelics.
Well, like I said, I've seen these sacraments turn warriors into peacemakers. I got out of my Ibogaine experience and I said, and I tell people this to this day because it's getting worse. I tell them if I could kidnap Putin and Zelensky and do an Ibogaine retreat in Mexico, the war would end. And of course, people laugh. I'm like, it's
true.
Absolutely the truth. Let me give you an example.
every member of Congress should, by law, have to go through an Ibogaine experience. Think about how much better the government would be.
Correct. So psychedelic science was June in Denver. And Rick Doblin, who runs MAPS or ran MAPS and MDMA, and he was on Joe Rogan and he talked about this. He said, I had a bunch of IDF veterans. And I had a bunch
Israeli Defense Force for the audience.
Yep. Israeli Defense Force vets and Hamas terrorists, former terrorists. He somehow got this group on a retreat. And guess what happened? Best friends. They were mortified. He tried to bring, they were going to do a panel in Denver to talk about this. The Trump administration wouldn't give the former Hamas terrorists visas, thereby proving the point about the power of these sacraments, right? These men who a year before would literally cut each other's throats, they'd stab you in the neck, were best friends. So I'm not joking.
Take 10 Antifa members and 10 hardcore MAGA members, do the same thing. And I guarantee we've saved the world.
I guarantee you, man. I guarantee it's not even, it's beyond guaranteed. And that's what's really cool about doing these retreats is, gals show up on a Thursday, not knowing each other, kind of standoffish. And by the time we're leaving, everybody's crying and hugging each other and they're best friends for the rest of our lives. I have about 30 different threads on Signal from every retreat. Everybody checks in and each little squadron is incredible. The world would be a much better place if people took responsibility for their healing. I try and go on every retreat, but we actually have somewhere people are going to different places and it's just too much. Every person who I haven't met, who we sponsor, I get a text, man, look at my social media that says, Whiz, I don't want to kill myself anymore. You can't put a $sign on that. You can't, it's just, I can't even put into words what it's like to get texts like that. Like, I'll thank you for my life back.
That's the bottom line. I attempted suicide in 2021 for the second time. The first time I was about 14 years old. And it is a shit way to live when those thoughts are on your mind all the damn time. It's like a demon possessed, just scratching at your brain. It's like, it could all end. You don't have to keep doing this. Just gnawing at your brain all the time, relentlessly, and won't let go. And when I finally shook that off, and I couldn't even tell you how I did it, but maybe psilocybin helped. I'm not sure. I threw the kitchen sink at it.
Good for you. Thank God you're here, my brother. You're here for a reason. Thank you.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying not to waste this time on this rock.
Yeah.
But it's not just the suicide, it's the work up to it. It like the shit life and the impact that has on those around you. There's a blast radius. So even if you think that you're holding it and keeping it to yourself,
nobody can
tell. There's a blast radius. You are affecting those around you if you're getting pelted by these horrible intrusive thoughts all the time.
Correct.
It has to be dealt with, and it ain't going to happen the easy way. It's just like, I love to get in great shape. Well, you got to lift the damn weights. The more you lift those weights, the more results you're going to have. It ain't going to just happen. You've got to put in the work, and putting in the work means, I don't know, that Ibogaine doesn't sound like it's a very good time. No, probably not. Do it anyway.
If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, man.
Well, embrace the suck, right? I talk about the battle school that I endured. It was the last traditional course in 91. And it was fucking brutal. It was so hard. And, but if it wasn't, then I wouldn't be proud of it.
Correct.
If it wasn't, what's the benefit? If I can't look back and go, ooh,
Yeah.
man, I really did something hard. That's why there's stolen valor. What
Mhm.
stolen valor actually is the people that want all the credit without doing the work.
Doing the work. Yeah.
So if you
Exactly.
want healing without doing the work, you're stolen valor. Like it's the same mentality.
Yeah.
You've got to do the work to get the healing.
And
If you
it's
want,
interesting. Yeah, you say that because um, these journeys, that I experienced, it wasn't a minute, right? There's no such thing as a minute. You love your wife, stop drinking, go home to your kids, you're healed. It was a court case, man. It was there was highs and lows in this journey. There was this and crying, and it ultimately ended up on the most beautiful high note I've ever experienced in my life. But it's a journey. There's a great, Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. Hell, Star Wars is based on every, the Dark Night of the Soul. The hero faces his demons and comes back to the village or everybody, and helps other people heal. So yeah, it is absolutely putting in the work. But as we talked about earlier, you have to want to do it. So to everybody listening right now, if this is interesting to you and you're kind of like, it's calling to you. If you're listening to this and going, that sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard, it's not. It's either 1 or 0 when it comes to something like this. And it's funny because when I've told people that, they're like, dude, you were absolutely right, man. It didn't. And then one day it started calling to me. And that's what we say. We say these sacraments call to you.
Ibogaine's been strong, has been calling to me for a couple of years, especially and it's calling stronger than ever. I just have not, even though I'm the resource guy, I have not found a place in Canada for it, or a place that accepts Canadian veterans.
So for what medicine?
For Ibogaine.
Check with the Mission Within. Check with Ambio Life Sciences. I thought they were helping all veterans.
The Mission Within was yesterday's guest.
Oh, really? Who did you have?
Or 2 guests ago. Hang on, let me look at my Spotify.
Jay Koppelman or Doc?
Yes, it was Jay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fellow naval aviator. I love that guy.
I invited him to come up here pheasant hunting.
He's a great dude.
Yeah.
The Mission Within.
That was episode 341, Jay Koppelman. And then 342 was Dr. Remington Nevin about methylene poisoning. So you're the 3rd American in a row.
Look at us. We're invading.
Well, I got to break into that American audience more because the per populace veteran population down there is way bigger. Way bigger. We've got a teeny weeny little army, but it's, good fighters. Yeah. At least we were. Definitely good fighters. And anybody that's worked with us, any Americans that have ever worked with us, are like, oh, yeah, you guys are switched on.
Yeah, they know how to fight. Absolutely.
Yeah, good fighters, but a tiny little force and malnourished and ill-equipped.
Yeah, man. We had a CF-18 pilot that I trained with. You guys fly Hornets, man. So I love you. You fly.
There you go. So tell me. So you've worked with Canadian pilots. Tell me about that.
Yeah, they're good. The one guy we worked with, it's a great deal for the Canadian exchange pilot to the U.S. Navy, because after his instructor tour, as a good farewell gift, they get to go to the boat and qualify and become a naval aviator. So they get to the U.S. Wings of Gold too. They love going back up to the Great White North with their United States Navy wings. And it's not guaranteed. When I was an instructor pilot in the F-18, we had a British exchange pilot. He flew Tornadoes. And again, end of his tour, good deal was going to be able to go to the boat. And we practice at the field hundreds and hundreds of landings. It's muscle memory. Turn here, this rate of descent. Do this with your left hand. Dude, look out at this point. And he couldn't do it, man. He sucked. He was just used to flying the Tornado and flaring to land. Every landing, he couldn't fly meatball lineup angle of attack in the F-18. I grabbed a 2-seat F-18. I jumped in his trunk and said, man, ride the controls with me. What? And I remember pulling him into my office. His call sign was Huffy. I'm like, Huffy, I can't take you to the boat, man. You're going to kill yourself or kill somebody else. And I just can't do it. And he flipped the fuck out, man. He was livid. A week or two later, when we were getting ready to go to the boat, he had kind of come down a little bit. I said, hey, man, I got to take a jet out to the boat. I'll grab a 2-seater. Why don't you jump in my trunk? And you'll at least get some carrier landings. You'll get to see it. He's like, oh, okay. Man, we came into the break over the ship at like 600 feet, 600 knots. I broke at the stern. I'm pretty sure he blacked out. I broke at the stern, rolled wings level, slammed him to the deck, and he's screaming in the back seat when he woke up. We're taxiing to the catapult. I landed. We're going to go stay in the pattern and do some, this is what I do, baby. Boom, catapult shot. He's screaming. I'm like, I turned down his ICS. I'm like, I'm done. I'm shutting you off. I got to focus on boat stuff. After about 10 landings, we land and get, thing opens. We get down the ladder. Now he's on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. Just the most chaotic thing he's ever seen. He grabs me and he goes, Whiz, you saved my fucking life. He goes, I would have died. And I'm like, I know.
No shame in it. Not everybody can do everything.
That's my job. I knew you were going to die. That's why we're here. He sang my praises, and years later, I got another letter from him. He's like, dude, I was just thinking about this, man. You did save my life. I'm like, yeah, I know. So we love the exchange pilots coming to fly Hornets if they can make it to the boat. If not, I mean, it's the great equalizer, man. You can be a steely-eyed tornado pilot or whatever in another country, and trying to land aboard a ship, it'll age you, man, or a woman.
Oh, two of my best military memories both involve an aircraft. One in Wainwright, a massive training area with warthogs coming over top, and then you hear the brap, brap, and you're just, oh my God. And for people that don't know what the brap is, it's a Gatling gun, whatever caliber bullets are whizzing out of there, 20 millimeter shells probably. And the guns are so powerful that it actually slows down the aircraft. Correct. And the beaten zone, so that the bullets per meter, per square meter or square yard, like there's no hiding from it. It's just hoses a football field area. And if you're in that, you're just going to die. You're going to pop into a pink mist, and that's just all there is to it. But the good news is you probably won't feel a thing. And, but seeing that, like having the warthogs over my head going brap. But the other one was in Camp Pendleton, or 29 Palms. It was 29 Palms. Mm-hmm. And we're in a live fire exercise. So real bullets. F-18 comes over top so low that I could see the goddamn rivets. And there was a pair of them that came over. So everybody just kind of stopped. Live bullets or not. I was like, ooh. And then the planes come over top, drop napalm. And there's this 1,000-foot wall of fire as they bank up and they fuck off. But and everybody just stopped and went, whoa, at this wall of fire. And like everybody stopped, including the sergeant major. And like you could feel the heat off this wall of fire. It was the most unbelievable thing. And we're all just sitting there like stunned like zombies until Sergeant Major started screaming, get back to work. Yeah, it was cool, but get back to work. Come on, it's a live fire range, fuck's sakes. Oh yeah, right, bullets. And back to work. But we were all stunned. Like it was the most incredible thing. There's no set of Walt Disney fireworks that can come close to even 1% of what that was.
Oh, I love it. Love supporting our guys on the ground, man. I was in air conditioning at 30,000 feet. You guys are down there at 3 feet. It's a different experience. My hat's off to you.
Well, the Mojave Desert was a hell of an experience. And the Marines there, what great hosts. I didn't see anybody eat a single crayon the whole time I was there. But they were great hosts, very kind to us, and a couple of us smuggled us into the Abrams because I've never seen an Abram before. Oh, nice. So I didn't get to sit in the lazy boy recliner, the driver's seat, but I was in that Abram, and he was kind of breaking the rules to do it, but it was really, really neat. And we were treated super well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we love our Marine Corps, man. Department of the Navy.
You know, they treated us with a lot of respect. I think they must have got some sort of bullshit briefing because we all wear green berets, right? And they equate that with special forces. And
Oh, true. Yeah.
we're reg force, but pretty good reg force. You know, man to man for man, we're pretty decent.
Yeah.
But not quite U.S. Army Rangers, I would say, as far as equivalent. But that'd be my best guess.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they treated us like we were special forces. I'll tell you, like they
Cool.
were. It was a respectful bunch. Yeah, it was good. And plus, they all knew that most of us were combat veterans already, and they also knew that we were there getting ready to go on a combat
Oh,
mission.
yeah.
So
True.
that was respected as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, you betcha. How do people find for the U.S. veterans that have that can access your foundation? How do they find you?
Yeah, head to nofallenheroes.com. Up at the top right, or right up at the menu, it says apply for grant. And you click on that. And if you're a veteran, first responder, or family member, that's the gateway in. We have a long list, man. Sadly, you know, I hate talking like this. We're kind of a victim of our own success, so to speak. I mean, I call it the world's greatest Ponzi scheme. You heal, you go home, you want to tell everybody, you want to help everybody heal. And as you know, veterans, if some mala bead drug wug wearing hippie told me to go do psychedelics, I wouldn't have done it. The fact that a vet told me, like, hey man, you should do this. So we all vouch for something. So we have a, you know, we're limited by funds, man. That's another reason we started our own church, Sacred Warrior Fellowship, is because if my wife and I got to kind of string things along, we'll do it. I you know, for the past couple of years, we put a ton of our personal money into the foundation. So, you know, because it sucks because somebody will be like, oh, okay, nofallenheroes.com, apply for grant. And 2 days later, they're like, hey, I haven't heard anything. When's my retreat? I'm like, oh, come on, man. You know,
have you had any support from Lieutenant Dan?
He's a great dude. We haven't connected yet. I know some people, and we're trying to partner with them. It's an interesting, the veteran nonprofit space can be pretty interesting, and it's, you know, I don't want to disparage anybody, any other organizations or anything like that, but let's just say, well, I already said it. I have about 5 other day jobs. I put money into the foundation, and let's just leave it at that. Just make sure if you're donating to a veteran nonprofit that, you know, the people who run it aren't getting paid insane salaries. Like, I mean, this is very public, so I'll bring it up. I mean, like Tunnel to Towers, they went through a scandal years ago. They're paying like their top 5 people $1 million each. I'm like, oh my God, man.
Yeah, like the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, you know, 95% goes to bonuses and travel and everything, and 5% goes to their mission. It needs to be the other way around. It should be 5% is your overhead, 95% goes to the mission. So you can go to nofallenheroes.com. But if you're a civilian, Sacred Warrior Fellowship, you can go to sacredwarriorfellowship.com. If you want to, if the winter sucks up in the Great White North, come down to Florida. In Palm Beach, Florida, we have our church. We have a beautiful sanctuary, about 4.5, 5 acres of land. You can sit with the sacrament of psilocybin, and it's just a great setting. So our next retreat, December 5 through 7, 5, 6, 7, and then we'll figure out our January, February schedule coming up. But if you're a civilian and you're looking for healing, we can help you out too. Just over there under the church. But veterans, nofallenheroes.com. And those
I'm so glad to have you on, Whiz. First Top Gun pilot ever. But talking about Ibogaine, I tell you, between having Jade 2 shows ago on and now yourself, I hope people's minds are open to the possibility. And at the end of the day, if you can't find access to Ibogaine, everybody can get access to psilocybin. Like everybody can.
Healing free, man. God put these compounds on this planet for us to heal. You can go in your yard and grab some psilocybin.
And it's online. Yeah, people grow. I grew some. I grew a crop. Yeah. I just Googled it, and somebody sent me the mycelium, and I just grew some.
Correct.
It was kind of fun, actually. It was simple enough. Yeah, it was simple enough, and I built a crop of it, and it's really helped me a lot. but I'm definitely called to Ibogaine. I just got to figure out how to get that done. I've been hesitant about ayahuasca. I've had opportunities to go on ayahuasca retreats, and I've just been like, I don't know.
It's not
So you
calling
got to
you. It's
listen to
not
that inner
calling to you.
voice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to listen to that voice. That
Correct.
voice is probably your ancestors tapping on your shoulder, directing you one way or the other.
Correct. Yeah. Trust. When you lead with your truth and your heart, you can never fail. But if one of those is kind of, we have a saying in naval aviation: if there's any doubt, there's no doubt. So if there's any doubt, no, you're good. It's got to call to you. So if Ibogaine's calling to you, I love the Mission Within. I love all the places we send people. But between us ladies, when I sat with Ibogaine 4.5, 5 years ago, it was $3,500.
Yeah.
Now it's about 10, 15, 20 at some of these places. And it just absolutely, I get it. They're not nonprofits. They are clinics, they're businesses, but man, at our church, we cover our costs, man. And we're good. It'll be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. My dad used
the name of your church one more time.
Sacred Warrior Fellowship.
Sacred Warrior Fellowship.
Yeah. sacredwarriorfellowship.com, Sacred Warrior Fellowship on Instagram, to learn about our retreats and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not a pharaoh. When I die, they're not putting money in my casket to like take to across the Mersey or something. I want to die essentially penniless, man. What's the point? I came in like that. I'm going to exit like that. So we try and do it. Nobody will ever be priced out of the sacrament at Sacred Warrior Fellowship, man. Even you don't have 2 dimes to rub together. We'll hook you up. We'll just ask after you heal and rise. You put the ladder down eventually and maybe go sponsor somebody else or something like that. So, because I've seen the results and I know the world's going to be a much better place if more people took responsibility for the healing. Next time you get on an airliner, what's the first thing the flight attendant's most likely going to say? If we lose cabin pressurization, put the mask on
yourself
first. You're not good to anybody else in your row if you're done. So strongly recommend everybody try and put the mask on.
That's one of the barriers to healing is because of the type of people we are, whether veteran or first responder, we're all fallen the sword kind of people, right? We like being the superheroes. We like being the ones wearing the fucking capes. So it's our instinct to be self-sacrificial, but you can't. You have to be selfish. Correct. You have to be selfish. Not being selfish is actually being selfish.
Exactly. That's the way to put it.
Yep. Because you have to look after yourself first, or you're just not in any kind of shape to help out anybody else. You have to look after yourself.
One of the biggest takeaways from the sacrament for me was self-compassion. I had to learn to forgive myself because you're right. As a military guy, ain't nobody going to be harder on me than me. I'll kick my own ass.
Who else puts their life on the line? Where you actually fill out your last will and testament when you're 18 years old. Right. Not too many people do that.
I had a note written to my beautiful bride in my safe on the boat. My roommate had the combo to my safe, and he did the same thing. Like, dude, if I die, mail this to her, type of thing. Yeah, I mean, as a 27-year-old kid flying fighter jets, I'm like writing a letter to my wife that I died. So yeah, it's a little much. So definitely put the mask on yourself first. And like I said, if this is calling to you, it is. If it ain't, it was just an interesting discussion between 2 bros, but maybe someday it'll call to you. And if it does, I'm here to help and be of service if I can.
Whiz, thank you so much.
You bet, Mark. Thanks. God bless. And thanks for all the work you're doing too.
Thanks, brother. Stay on the line. You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast. If you would like to help save a life, like, comment, subscribe, or share like the sugar bear, because sharing is caring. And it helps me out a lot. It's the easiest way I can think of to save a life with almost zero effort. Just help support this show that supports so many others. Thanks, everybody.